Hey friends, this is Christopher Davis-Shannon and welcome to the final video in my 4-part series on starting to improvise on ukulele. If you've missed the first 3 parts, I'll link to them below so that you can get caught up before we dive into this last section. But this week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. While we've worked on improvisation exercises and techniques necessary to start improvising, this week we're going to be analyzing a solo, and we're going to take you into my world a little bit. We're going to be looking at a Chet Baker solo and how all of these techniques that we've talked about over the last 3 weeks are used in there. Let's get started. Now we're going to be working on a solo based off the tune, almost like being in love. So before we can analyze a solo, we need to make sure that we all know the tune. So let's take a moment just to play through the A section of this, which is the part that we'll be looking at. And even if you cannot play the melody perfectly, that's okay. The big key here is to be able to hum the melody, have it stuck in your head a little bit so you can hear how the solo plays off of this. Let's give it a shot. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now the other piece of the puzzle that we need before we look at the solo itself is understanding the harmony of the song. Remember, in past weeks we've talked about how the melody and harmony interact and how we can solo around both of those to create our own melody. But instead of just playing through the chords, what I've done is created an arpeggio or broken chord exercise, just playing the individual notes of the chord. This is almost like a walking bass line, but this gives us a good sense for how the harmony moves. So let's give this a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to go through this 16 measure solo, just the A sections of the tune, in sections based on the phrase itself. But one thing I want to note as I bring up the tabs here is not to worry about the rhythm too much. Yes, we want to play it accurately and we want to understand it. But what's written on the page is really an approximation of the rhythm. When we're writing swing-based rhythms, we're playing with the beat a lot. So really what you need to do is listen to the song to get the phrasing. We're going to talk more about the harmony here and the melody and what's happening in the solo. So as we look at this first lick, we're starting on E flat on the 6th fret of our A string and going down to a D here. If we think back to our harmony, this is our pickup measure. So what's happening here is this is an F minor 7th to a B flat 7th, resolving to an E flat major 7th, giving us a 2-5-1 in the key of E flat. So we're hearing that. So how do these notes relate? Well, this E flat that we're starting on, that's the 7th of our F minor 7th chord. Remember, this is one of our active notes, one of those notes that pushes us somewhere, because where does it want to go? Down to the D on the 5th fret, which is the 3rd, right? One of those important chord quality notes for our B flat 7th chord. And then we walk on down the B flat, right? Also a chord tone over the B flat. We're resolving to an E flat major 7th and hitting the 3rd here, right? Which is another one of those important tones that tells us the quality of the chord. And we can play that kind of with the chords in here. Hear how this works. But there's another device going on here. If we think back to the melody of the song, that's our first lick, right? We have well, Chet Baker here is quoting the melody of the song. He's just starting it over top of that 5 chord, over top of the B flat, and resolving to that E flat major 7th. So first lick we hear sounds like this. Just quoting the melody and also really strongly outlining harmonically what's going on in the song. In the next measure we have an F 7th chord. And Chet waits. Notice all the space in this melody. And I can't stress enough how important the phrasing and the space is. You gotta breathe, and the music has to breathe as well. And I always thought that Chet Baker was sort of a master of this, of just waiting for the perfect moment to come in. He comes in on beat 3 over at F7 with a C sharp. In an F7 chord, we have F, A, C, E flat. So what's this C sharp doing? Well, it's leading us somewhere. This is one of those active notes, because if we look ahead, we're going to a D minor 7th. So what is that C sharp doing? It's sitting in between the 7th and the root, the C and the D, and he resolves exactly there. He comes C sharp to A, just our 3rd, a nice chord tone, and resolves to that D minor 7th, resolving to the C natural on the 3rd fret. So our next line is 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And as that comes in, that C sharp works, doesn't it? Because it's giving us tension to get to that D minor 7th. And then we wait a moment here again, and now we're over top of G minor 7th chord, right? You G, B flat, D, and F. And what do we do here? We start off D, F, 2 of our chord tones. Remember how important the chord tones are in getting our phrasing, and going to an A. A little odd, but this is the 9th of our chord. If you play a G minor 7th with an A in there, it sounds rather nice. It's a consonant tone. And then landing on a C, which doesn't quite make sense, but if we look ahead, we're landing on a C minor 7th chord in a moment. So we're just anticipating that chord change. And then it comes in. So let's try these first 4 bars of the melody together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we just landed on this C minor 7th chord with the root up top, just floating along here. What happens in this measure? We go B flat, G, B flat. Those are all chord tones. Those are notes that are already down. These are just playing the notes in the chords themselves. No passing notes whatsoever. And then we're going to an F7th, but we're keeping that B flat. This is really making it almost a suspended chord. And then bring it down to the A in the next B. That's our lick. So that B flat is hanging over from the C minor 7th, but he does bring it down to the A. We're just waiting a little bit. We're creating tension over top of the chord and then resolving that tension by coming down to a chord tone. We're going F, A. Just outlining that major 3rd right there. That sounds just like an F chord, right? And then we repeat that. F, A to F, and then to a G. And we're over top of a B flat 6th chord now. What's that 6th? It's a G. So we're highlighting that important tonality of the chord. Not any of the notes are a B flat triad, but this special note, this G that's over top. We're hanging out on that. So we get to that C minor 7th. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now as we get to measure 10 in this next phrase, we're back to the beginning of the A section with this E flat major 7th here, right? And what are we doing? We're walking down the chord. D, B flat, G. That's it. Just chord tones tell us a whole lot of what's going on. Now the next lick is really cool because we're over an F7th chord, right? But we're starting on an E flat. We're starting on that 7th scale degree. Getting this nice tension in here and coming up. And we're a G, B flat, D. Ooh. Creating this G minor triad over top of an F7th chord, but then at the top, landing on that F. What we're doing is we're extending the chord. We're just stacking these notes on top of it, these 3rds. The G is our 9th, 11th, 13th, and then finally landing on the root of the chord itself. And we get to a D minor 7th chord, and he does really the same thing he did over top of the E flat major 7th. We're just walking down the chord. C, A, F, right? All those notes are contained in here that we need. And then at the end of here, he plays over a G minor 7th chord. Ooh, that's a funky little chord, but we start off D, F, and then that A, that 9th again. He's repeating one of those fun tonalities that he hinted at earlier on, adding the 9th to this minor 7th chord. And repeating these things that we've already done, right? That's really the same lick he was doing over top of the F7th. He's extending this D minor 7th, this G minor 7th chord, adding the 9th, 11th, but then we get this E flat here, or this D sharp, which is really a sharp 5. Remember, he did that in the beginning. That C sharp over top of the F7th chord. He's doing the same thing over top of this G minor 7th now. And then resolving it down to B flat over top of a C minor 7th to G. Just all chord tones right here. And then this last little bit I put in because he goes into a little scale section that goes beyond the range of our little instrument going into the bridge. So we're just recapping that sharp 5 over the F7th. Let me play this little section for you because there's actually a lot going on. I'm going to play it nice and slow. There's a lot of notes. We're starting at measure 10. It's going to sound like this. All right, so let's try that last little bit together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're ready to give the whole solo a shot. Now this isn't easy, and as I said, listen for the phrasing here. There's a lot going on, but let's just be aware of what's happening here in relation to everything we've talked about, the chord tones, about playing with the melody, about creating tension with half-step dissonances in the solo. Let's give it a shot. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you've enjoyed this series. I have this lead sheet, the entire solo, the melody, as well as the broken chord exercise up on my Patreon for y'all, along with worksheets to go with the other 3 lessons we've done on improvisation. In addition to that, we've also done 3 hours of live streaming now, talking about these solo concepts and diving deeper into them. So please do join me over there, and I'll see y'all next week.